first one, the stone wall, and I'm going to render, just show you how to render it. Notice my pencils are pretty darn sharp. That's the way you really need to do renderings, is keep a sharp pencil. You know, if you have a dull pencil, you're going to end up cheating yourself. It's going to end up turning out really, really poorly. This right here on the top is a plan view, so you're looking down on top of the wall. This is another elevation of the wall. Again, you might think this is time-consuming, but you know what? This is part of architecture. If you want to really do a great presentation, you spend the time doing it. When I render, and I'm going to just do a little, so I can get the rough edges off this. This is French gray. I'm going to use gray here. The key to doing any renderings, whether it's colored pencils or whether it's markers, always start with light colors and go to the dark. If you ever did the opposite, you can't lighten up dark, but you could darken when you start doing it light. I'm going to just start out with this random color here of gray, and then I'll go to a different color. I just go in here. I hold my pencil back. I don't hold it here, because that makes you want to really press hard. I don't want to press hard. I want to start out lightly. If you ever look at stone, you know, every stone is more or less has a different cast to it, different value. So I'm just hopping around different areas to fill in the space. Also, when you start, whether you're right-handed or left-handed, when you start sketching or coloring, and you change colors, once you start a direction, don't change directions. Don't all of a sudden do this, because it's going to really confuse your rendering. Always go in the same direction, even when you're drawing a floor plan. Now, if I want to hit some of these a little darker, I just go over them another time. Also, stone, in a lot of cases, have undulated surfaces. Let's say my sun angle is from this angle here, so I'm going to have shadows on the back side. So I'll go back and hit this side of the stone so that it looks like it's in shadow. Okay, now I'm going to try a little darker. Again, I wouldn't worry too much about going outside the lines. I mean, try to be as careful as you can. Don't go way outside the lines, because then it's like obvious that you're rushing it. But all right, I'm going to take, what's this, French gray? Add a little warm stone color to it. Okay, so you go through the whole area, fill in all the elements, all the stones. Then what you can do is you can go in there and in between the stones, find a color that would look like your mortar or your cement. So I'm doing a gray. Fill in the voids in between the stones. I'm doing gray right here. Now what I'm going to do down here, I mean, if you want to use just as a cream color, you add the cream color in there. So that way it appears that all your stones are held together with cement, concrete, mortar. And once you get that all done, did he say everybody get a pilot fine liner yet?
Mm-hmm.
This is the holy grail of rendering. You always want pilot fine liners, and you don't press hard. I'm just going to hold it lightly, and it runs smooth. Then what I do is the finishing touches on a rendering, and when you get further down, we'll be doing trees and shrubs and all that stuff. I'll take my pen This works great when you're doing, let's say you're doing an elevation of a house and you have a stone chimney. This right here really makes that chimney pop out when you outline it. And I outline all my the homes too, the roofs, everything. That's the last thing I do. So then when you have anything that's in a plane in front of another plane, that outline will be darker so that it looks like it's appearing in front. So that's the elevation. Now what you can do is basically do the same thing here on the plan view. This is the elevation. Basically do the same thing. You can change if you like your shadows from that direction, then the shadows will be on the opposite side. Let me just go down to this one right here real quick. This is brick. This is how you draw elevation of brick. It's basically just horizontal lines. And this is the soldier course up here at the top. Soldier course brick means they stand them up on end. So on this one right here, I'll just rest my hand and I'll just start in a corner. Nice thing about color pencils too, if you need to, you can erase some of it. But again, I'm just starting off light. Brick colors, this right here is more or less almost like a terracotta, so that's sort of a standard brick. Now I can go back in and I can add value to it. And again, you don't have to do it, skip some of it if you have to. You don't want to wear your pencils out, but at least get the idea. And then what happens then when you're done is you can take the cream or the white. The white probably isn't going to show up. I'll use French gray. So say we use a gray mortar. Take your straight edge. Now see, every time this is fairly sharp, but every time I draw a line, my next line I turn the pencil. Because if you keep the pencil in the same spot, you're going to hit a fat spot and you're going to end up having a real bold line. One of the other things you're going to end up doing in another week or so, maybe next week, I'm going to get you started on rendering people, putting people in your elevations. When you draw an elevation to scale, if you don't have a person on it, we can't tell whether the wall's 20 feet high or if it's 5 feet high. So if you were to put a person on it, can I borrow Leah, your scale? Just
Sure.
That one right there. I just want to. This right here, I'm just going to show you real quickly down here in this brick wall. This brick wall is 12 feet tall, quarter scale. I'm going to draw a 6-foot tall person next to it right here. And when I say person, usually like an architectural person, that's 6 foot. But if you were to draw that person that tall, you can see that now you don't know what the height of that is. Right now, I mean, he's showing 8 foot tall, but if he was a 6 foot tall person, this means this wall's probably more like, if that's 6 foot, this is 10 foot. But it just shows you how people really add a scale to it. The other thing I want you to do when you're drawing, say when you're done with this elevation here, and again, you're going to have yours taped down. Mine's not taped down, but the most important part of finishing elevation is what we call the ground line. This is the ground line right here. I don't want a ground line that tiny or that thin. A ground line should be bold, because again, when you do that, it takes this whole element and has something pulling it down so it doesn't look like it's floating. This right here is not acceptable for a ground line. I just drew these up so that you have an idea what you're going to be rendering. This is concrete block. I want to do something real quick. I think I'm going to do it on this one. This is another way of showing concrete block and elevation. Typically, you have your joint lines like this right here, but this is sort of like structural block. It's a little bit different. This is one whole thing. Here's structural block, and this is regular block. But sometimes you don't want to do a whole rendering. You don't want to color the whole thing in. So if that's the case, what I do, I don't know if you're learning it in building systems or not. Has she told you anything about break lines, how to draw a break line? Those are what we call break lines. What you're doing, though, is then you're going to render this, you're going to render this, and you leave that out. But the professional knows that that really means is that this rendering really continues all the way through, just saving time. Sometimes you'll actually even have a real long wall like this. Instead of drawing a 75-foot wall, you do a break line so that it fits onto a sheet. But then you just go in there with your colored pencils. And again, see how I hold my pencil back and it's on an angle so that I get a nice stroke. I move my entire hand. I don't just sit there and do this. It's going to end up having a curve to it. Then you go in with, I would say try this. I don't have a triangle here, but all concrete block has is they have mortar in between the joints. So I just do that, and then I do the verticals. And if you take this away from the overlay, even up here, you'll be able to see the colors in the joints. You see the colors in the joints. Another thing you can add to it, the French word, anybody ever heard the French word poche? P-O-C-H-E. Poche means to stipple. So what we a lot of times will do is we'll just to indicate the aggregate. Yeah, sometimes they actually will even do it in brick too. But even in the brick, you know, you can end up doing your brick coursings based on the size. And again, those you wouldn't do the whole wall, you just do part of it just to give it the same thing with up here. This is a soldier course. You'd show the soldier course like that. Any questions?
So for only this one, we're doing break lines, not that one?